So I'm here with Cecil Puvathingal. I think I got the pronunciation right,
You got it
Cecil.
perfect.
So welcome, Cecil. Tell me a little bit about. I know you and I are friends. Tell me a little bit about what you've been doing um, in the last couple of years, and then I'll dive into it. We'll talk a little bit more. But tell me a little bit what you've been doing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we work together, so that's a big part of what we've been doing for the last couple of years. You and I met almost 5 years ago,
Right.
and instantly had a connection. And as a result of that connection, we both recognized that we want to do something great, work together, figure out a way in a business perspective. How can we drive drive revenue for for our company, but also figure out a way to help the industry. And so what we decided, it took 2 years for me to say yes. Uh, what we decided was there was a very immediate need for market research agencies to work with QuestionPro. They're using a tool like ours to uh, uncover uh, uncover data um, or collect data, uncover insights, and then parse it out to their customers. And we have a platform that can absolutely help them do that. And so the challenge here wasn't that we hadn't identified the market we didn't have a go to market strategy around how do we collect all of these companies that clearly have a need into I would say, a service platform that can assist them so that they can help their customers. And so the things that we talked about were what is a go to market strategy? How do we get in front of them? How do we connect our value prop to what they need to get done? And then how do we support them as customers? How do we wrap our company, the services that we provide around these organizations, which are typically smaller, and how do we amplify what it is that they're trying to get accomplished through, in my mind, three main ways. Number one,
Mhm.
it is a platform technology that handles all the research needs that a market research agency would need. Number two, how do we support them from a customer service perspective? And then number three, how do we incorporate a pricing model that makes sense for them? And so when you think that a lot of these companies are privately owned, they're small, their money is theirs, right?
Right.
And so everything that they spend on needs to be something that amplifies what they're trying to do. And I also think,
I want to take a break. I want to double click here. Like, you know, you're a sales guy,
yeah,
right? Let's kind of, sales
own
has,
it.
own it. Good. First of all, thank you. Sales has generally a narrative in our society that's like, oh, they want to sell me something, they want to move on. That's it. That's the narrative, right? That's at least the narrative. Whether it's true or false,
Yeah,
part of it. I mean, there's a narrative because part of it is true. Okay, otherwise there wouldn't be a narrative. You just outlined kind of not just selling and moving on. You just outlined a lot more. You're looking at not just selling and moving on, really, right? Um, how did you come to this? How did you?
oh my
I'm
God.
curious as to how you came.
Yeah.
Sales has this negative connotation, or this theoretical negative connotation, whereas what you're talking about, and most people who interact with you tell me something completely different.
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
and
I can tell
I
you.
want to step back and tell me about your journey in sales. How did you start off and
Yeah.
into this process, really? I mean,
Well,
and I'm in your LinkedIn profile, and I
oh,
want to go all the way back to engineering intern at
yeah,
Kimberly Clark.
that's
So
exactly.
tell me about that. How did
I,
you become from an engineering intern to
I was on the
coaching
diaper
us?
team.
You're on the diaper team. There you go.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So I would tell you, I started out as an introvert
Right.
and very shy, mainly because I didn't know how to speak English as a little kid. And so I was always a step behind people when I was very young, when we first moved to the US. Um, but I was also a really smart kid. And I picked up math, science, all of those subjects very quickly. I gravitated towards computers. Commodore 64 was my first
Mhm.
computer, learned how to code. And
Mhm.
so my degree was in electrical engineering. But I realized around the time I was in college and right afterwards that I did, I loved meeting people. And while I loved meeting people, I didn't like inauthenticity. So this idea of the used car salesman, if we
Mm-hmm.
tie it back to sales, I didn't want that. So what I wanted on a very basic level, and how I believe I live my life, is I wanted to I wanted to position myself as someone I could go into any room and make
Mm-hmm.
friends. And but I wanted that friendship to be deep. And so in essence, when you think about it, like, what is sales? Sales is the ability to make a connection quickly, but not just any connection, one that is genuine and authentic, one where you're actually making a real connection. Then number two, okay, I've made a friend. How do I keep them as a friend? Now apply
Mm-hmm.
that to business, right? And especially I'm on the back nine of my career, back nine of my life. And I have always felt that um, I, I wanted to, I wanted people to see me as someone who could help them. And then eventually as someone who can help unlock potential. So I work with a lot of young people traditionally over the
Mm-hmm.
last 25 years. And I think a big challenge that I had when I was entering the workforce was that I didn't have anyone who could truly mentor me in a way that resonated with me. And
I want to double click that. You
yeah,
you
sure.
talk a lot about mentorship. You talk a lot, and you and I have talked about it. You've talked a lot about mentorship. You talked a lot about kind of helping people reach their potential, both on the client
Exactly.
side and on the
Yes.
employee side, really, right?
Yes.
So on the client
Yes.
side and the employee side, right?
Yeah.
It's an important fact that I want to kind of click on. So like very few, I've met very few people in life that have this kind of like core first principle. Like my goal is to expand your potential or allow you
Yeah.
to reach your potential realistically, right? And tell me a little bit about, I go back to your LinkedIn profile really and say like you were at Career Builder. You were at Career Builder for I don't know how long how long were you
Almost
there
10
at Career
years.
Builder? Almost 10
Almost
years,
10
right? So
years.
you
That's some
you were
great
at
people.
Career Builder and tell me, and you built an amazing team at Career Builder realistically, right? So tell me more about how you did that. What was the key thing you did, or the many key things you did, and at building at Career Builder? Career Builder went from almost nothing in Chicago to very, very, very big in Chicago.
Right.
So tell me about your journey at Career Builder, and especially around the teams you built and how you motivated them.
Yeah. It's funny. I was 33 when I started at Career Builder, and I
Right,
thought I was a really old guy. And I joined a inside sales team at
right.
33, and most of the people I was working with was 23. And so there was a period of ego that took over, and I thought that I might have been better than everyone. But in
Mm-hmm.
reality, I learned how incredible these young people were. And I was
Right.
close enough to their age. I was typically 10 years older than most of the people I interacted with. Um, and once I removed ego from the equation and saw people for who they were, I realized, holy moly, there are so many talented people, authentic people, people that honestly want to get better in life.
Mm.
And life has a component of work and
Mm-hmm.
home, or work and
Mm-hmm.
play. And so I really leaned into that. And so the last half of my 10-year career builder was spent in kids coming out of college. So I created this massive group. I had 55 people reporting to me at that time, 5 teams, each with a
Mm-hmm.
sales manager. And we were calling into professional services. But
Mm-hmm.
that was just a vehicle. What I was
Mm-hmm.
really doing was bringing in talent into the company for the future of the company. And at the time, it looked like the minor leagues, but we turned it into something incredible. We were consistently hitting targets, driving revenue, and I was bringing all these incredible human beings, good people that were good salespeople, into the rest of the organization. And within a few years, those people that I hired were taking on leadership positions. Uh, uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they're leading a bunch of different people, high level sales roles. And what I
Mm-hmm.
realized was that these people, the key is to find good people, but then the second key is to put them in an environment where they feel like they can raise their hand to ask questions. And how do you do that? You have to express and highlight and celebrate vulnerability. Because guess what? There's a lot of rooms that we're scared to be in on a very
Mm-hmm.
basic level. And it's
Mhm.
really scary to tell other people that you don't know the answer. And
Mhm.
so when I started modeling in my time at Career Builder, I just decided that my confidence was going to come from the fact that I'm not afraid to be the dumbest guy in the room. Because I know that I'm not a dumb guy.
Mhm.
But if I'm
Mhm.
asked a question, other people will realize, well, if Cecil had that question, maybe I had that
Right.
question too.
Right.
Right.
So you
So
say something. Is that one of the key kind of building blocks in your kind of in your thought process? Is you have to highlight and celebrate vulnerability, right? It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay, and that creates the space, that creates the environment of your team to say, yeah, it's okay to be vulnerable,
yeah, I
and
have a
therefore
phrase.
they get connected and they perform better.
That's 100% correct. Because the thing is, when you are in a new environment, it is
Hmm.
incredibly intimidating, very daunting. And the last thing, everyone, you know that everyone knows that you don't know a lot.
Hmm.
And so, how do you acquire more knowledge? You acquire more knowledge by asking, and not asking in a one on one basis, but asking in a group setting so that people start seeing that when we celebrate the person asking the questions, there's
Hmm.
always going to be someone who has an answer. And I also don't need to be the person with the answer. In fact, what I noticed as I started modeling this behavior, different people in the room that used to ask those questions would jump in to help answer the questions. And so as
Yeah.
you're elevating your career, you start becoming increasingly good at asking questions, which is a hallmark of leadership,
Yeah.
right? But I would say then the other corollary to all of that is, especially when you're young, this idea of resilience and perseverance, because you are
Hmm.
going to get knocked down. This
Hmm.
world is tough, and it's not. You don't have your parents to protect you anymore, if you even did when you were young, and you got to figure out this uh, shitstorm. Sorry, that
Yep.
is that is life, and so that's why I think that vulnerability is so important because guess what? When you ask questions in front of other people, you're exposing the fact that you don't know something. And if someone doesn't jump out to answer the question, you are now in a position of extreme vulnerability. And what I've noticed though is that the more times you're knocked down, the more opportunities you have to get back up. And all
Mm.
you have to do is you have to get up one more time than you've been knocked down.
Right.
And Viv, I mean, you and I, we're veterans to all of this. We've
Yep.
been beat up a lot. And guess
Yep.
what? We're still standing. And
That's right.
and and I think that's huge. And so you start seeing little by little, because there's a lot of patience that comes with this kind of stuff. Um, that the people that are getting it, that are grabbing life by the horns, they're the ones that ask questions, get beat
Mhm.
up, and continue to get back up. And they're also the ones that recognize when other people need help, they'll jump in and help. So it's
Got it.
this circular environment that I'm creating.
Got it. And we'll dive into kind of the sales and the culture and the employee angle a little bit more, and then we'll shift gears into kind of research and what you're selling and what you're doing. We'll talk a little bit about research. So in terms of kind of building the team, building the culture, I know you're a huge kind of believer in culture based kind of modeling, really, right? So the culture drives success. Uh, what are, like, anybody who's running a team of like 3 to 5, you ran 5 teams of, or 10 teams of five each, really. So it's kind of, obviously that was not built overnight, that was built over time, really. What are 2 or 3 tactical things that anybody who's looking at even a team of 5, right, in terms of building culture, right, building kind of that, this openness where you say you have the capacity to ask questions and so on. um, do you have, what's your viewpoint on what are the 2 or 3 things that you did, that you felt later on, like, dude, that thing worked? The
Yeah,
key is like what worked, right?
yeah,
Tell me
yeah.
more.
I think it's a few things, but the first and foremost is the ability for the leader to rally around a goal, get everyone behind it, and then figure out ways to achieve it. And here's the key. And typically these goals are given top down. In a
Yep.
sales team, it's super easy. It's your target, right? It's very simple. And so you have, as a leader, an opportunity to go about this in two ways. One is, hey, I'm going to tell all of you how to do it. Another way is, here's our target. Hey, what are different ways we can do this? Let's all throw out ideas. The more you can get people throwing their ideas into it, the better, the richer the eventual solution ends up being. And
Right.
what's interesting is a lot of those things that they come up with are very similar to a lot of the ones that you would have told them.
Mm-hmm.
But the only difference is now it's their idea.
Right.
So that creates belief,
Yeah.
which I think is huge. More importantly, it's belief in themselves. Wow, I had a hand in this strategy that we are all incorporating as a team to get after that number.
Mm-hmm.
It's belief in the team
Right.
because it's not just my idea, other people contributed it.
Right.
Then it's belief in the leader. Wow, my manager create an environment. I feel valued. I am valuable. The fact that I was able to contribute an idea means that what we're doing is we all had a hand in it. What's interesting is the reason why I would tell you 95 to 97% of my teams have hit targets. And
Mm-hmm.
my teams aren't any different than anyone else's teams. The biggest difference I would say is I made sure everyone had a voice to contribute to the overall strategy. So
Got it.
that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing was, so that in and of itself is not enough. You need to have a relationship with each person on the team to understand what their why is and connect that why to what we're trying to do as a team. And
Mm.
so in sales, it's also in entry level sales, I would say in some ways it's easier. But I've noticed because I've worked with people of all different ages, responsibilities, different parts of their lives, and it's all about connecting to their why and whatever that why might be. For someone starting out their career, it might be, you know what, I want to buy that Louis Vuitton bag,
Mm.
and they're attaching value to
Mm-hmm.
some goal that they have. So when they're picking up a phone 50 times a day for cold calls, it's not the phone that they're looking at, it's they're looking at that Louis Vuitton bag.
Right.
Someone else might
And
be
this goes to purpose. Do you do that on a kind of like as soon as somebody comes into your team, like what's your why, what's your purpose? Do you truly understand that really clearly, as a leader?
uh no.
Mm.
So it's because it can seem very, very inauthentic if you just
Right.
come out and just say, what's your why?
Yeah.
I think the leader needs to spend a lot of time establishing trust because this stuff organically comes out. If you do this right, people will
Hmm.
tell you, dude, this is why I do what I do.
Right.
Now, I am very transparent about my why because I'm trying to model it. Everyone who knows me knows everything I do it for my wife,
Right.
right? And
Right.
now as a leader, if you tell your team why you're doing the things that you do, guess what eventually will happen? They'll tell you because in order to get trust, you have to be trustworthy. In order to
Yeah.
gain respect, you have to be respectful, right? And so
Right.
I think modeling these things that you want is how you do it. And interestingly, when you do this, they'll just tell you. And now, I would tell you that people starting their career, it's a lot easier than people
Yeah.
late in their career. You have to kind of figure it out.
Right. This is a good kind of, honestly, you give me something to think about. I'm not kidding you. I've never thought about it in a structural way, right? The way you're kind of positioning it. Like, do you know, for all the people who work with you, do you know their why? Right. I mean, everywhere I've thought about it in the context of, I'll tell you, I've not thought about it. Okay. So I don't know the why. I know the why of a few of the people over the times that have worked with me for a long period of time. But then there are new people who come in and I don't know their why.
Yeah.
Right, at least I don't know their why to the point that you're trying to say, like, but again, once you say it, it kind of makes sense, right? Like if you know the why, then you can then think about it, then you can then model it, you can
You know,
then do a
Viv,
lot of things.
I would also tell you people think this starts when you take over the team or
Hmm.
uh, or after the person becomes an employee. I actually think this starts in the interview process.
Mm,
You're
that's a
tell
good
like
one.
You absolutely, at least the way I interview people, I tell them exactly the type of person that I want, what it is that I'm looking for, what we're trying to get accomplished. But I'm also telling them who I am as a human being, what type of team that they're walking into, and what the expectations are.
Mm,
In the course of that conversation, you get to understand who this person is that you're talking about. And then you can start pulling at those strings
mhm.
if you decide to hire them or if they decide to accept your offer. So I think
Right.
it goes back to one of your first questions. It's this whole idea of connecting with someone, which is what I think sales is. You're always selling, whether you're in a selling role or not, because you're trying to connect with someone. You're trying to understand what drives them, because once you do that, you're able to unlock potential. And then you
Right.
can actually get stuff done. Because at the end of the day, all this stuff is about driving revenue. And
Right.
so I've had leaders ask me, so what are your tactics for driving revenue? And what I've invariably tell them is, well, believe it or not, I don't look at the numbers as much as, or at least I don't let people know that I'm looking at the numbers like you would think. I spend all my time trying to get to know the person,
Mm,
because I know if I get to know the person, I can connect that to the numbers later. Now, I'm an engineer by education. I look at numbers all the time, but
right.
so I have that in the back of my mind. But it's incredible what you can unlock once you get to know someone. And it doesn't take that long to get to know someone.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is very very super interesting, at least to me. Is you're an engineer, but yet you kind of like you look for the why more than
I
you
do.
look for the metrics and say like, hey, you're a great guy, but tell me why you're really here. Tell me what can I, is it the Louis Vuitton bag, or is it the car that you want to buy, or is it what is it that's driving you? And sometimes it's kind of like, hey, I just want to do this, and I want to make a difference. Let's switch gears a little bit. Okay, let's switch gears. We've talked a little bit about sales. We've talked a little bit about um, kind of the building teams. Let's talk a little bit more about research. In the sense, you are heading up the insights kind of business for Question Pro, um, and you are talking to you know hundreds of companies who are in the research business,
Yeah.
right? In the research and insights and consumer intelligence and market intelligence business. And tell me, what is your opinion, how things are evolving? Obviously things are changing, evolving, moving ahead. What are you seeing in the market with respect to how research itself is evolving slash moving slash
Yeah.
directionally? Tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Tell me what are two or three things that jump out to you.
Well, I think one of the interesting things, just before, let me preclude that question with an observation. So, number one, I don't come from the research space.
Yep.
That's what's so fascinating to me. But what I've noticed is all the things I've done in the past tie into this. These companies that I work with on a daily basis, they're all small businesses. They care so much about their employees and their customers. They are personally invested, not just professionally. That to me, that speaks to the core of everything you and I were just talking about. The fact that they care so much, which is why they've been so inviting of me. And like, I go in and I say, hey, I don't know anything about this space, and they'll invite me and said, Cecil, let me just teach you about it. Every single person has told me that. Our customers, one of the reasons why I believe they're our customers is because we come from a place of humility. And I certainly do, right? And so they've invited me in. That's allowed me to look at this space in a way that might be a little bit different than someone who's been in the space for 25, 30 years. And so what I would tell you is that what I've noticed in the last 2 years, there is a very healthy dose of skepticism around the quality of the data that they're collecting. And that's because of AI. And so many of my conversations around how do we understand whether this data we're collecting is real? How can we trust it? You
Mhm.
know, you and I were just talking about trust from a team perspective. It applies, in my mind, it's the number one thing that is happening in our industry today. How do we trust the data that we're collecting? The reason why is because we're using that data to make recommendations for our customers. And if that
Right.
data is fraudulent, then our conclusions are fraudulent.
Right.
That speaks to the core of our business and how can we keep these customers our customers if they don't trust what we're sharing with them. So I think that's number one.
I do want to double click over here.
Sure.
I like the word they use, fraudulent, as opposed to bad. Okay,
Yeah,
I've had a lot of kind of conversations where, oh, bad data, garbage in, garbage out, really, right? So it's like, but you kind of, purposefully probably chose the word fraudulent. So
yeah,
there is an active effort. There's a difference between bad data and fraudulent data.
correct.
Like, fundamentally, if you think about it, right? Bad data is like, hey, we made a mistake in how we did our job.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, okay, we just took the wrong turn, etc., etc.
Mhm.
We used the wrong model, we used the wrong methodology. Da, 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 da. That's kind of, you could argue that to be bad data, but you purposefully use the word fraudulent. So tell me more about why this fraud is a little bit different than bad data.
Correct. So I did use it intentionally. Fraudulent's all about bad actors, bad intent, bad people, right? It's not about the data per se. It's about all these forces that are out there that are trying to give you information that is simply not correct or sway you one way or the other. Um, and so, we talk about trust. I think that's where the trust comes in. When you talk about bad data versus good data, I think all researchers are trying to figure out the best methodology on how they collect, let alone how they analyze data. And depending upon what it is that they're trying to analyze, there's going to be better ways of doing it versus other ways. Experienced researchers will figure that out in their own process. That's not fraudulent. There are no bad actors involved there. But when you're looking at bots, when you're looking at professional survey takers that are purposely trying to skew conclusions one way or another based upon how they respond, that's fraudulent.
So, and do you think that that has obviously, and your baseline position, as well as what you're hearing from everybody in the industry, is because of the AI
That's it.
proliferation, this has just become an existential threat, or
That's it.
it was superfluous in the beginning, and now it's
Yeah.
clearly not superfluous. It
Yeah.
is beyond superfluous, really,
Yeah.
right now,
I mean, let's
right?
be honest. There's a lot of great things that AI is doing with regards
Right.
to productivity and efficiencies, but this is the piece. The quality of the data um,
Mhm.
is where AI needs to be challenged. And this
Mhm.
idea of having a human in the loop, which I've heard from so many different researchers, is paramount. That's why I think good researchers will never leave. You can have AI as much as possible, but you need good researchers in the loop of its collection to ensure that what's being used for analysis is actually relevant to the questions and the business insights at hand.
Awesome. Good. I'm going to switch gears again. I'm going to jump around,
Sure,
switch gears again. You and I have talked a lot about time, the concept of
yeah,
time. All right, it's a deeper concept. Um, I love the conversations you and I have had
yeah,
over time, right? And you have distinct opinions. I also have distinct opinions about time.
right,
Tell me, when I throw out the word time,
yeah.
what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Or,
Well,
tell
none
me.
of us have enough of it. And so that's number one. Number two, um, I don't think people really think about it in the way that it should. Can I tell a few stories?
Absolutely. Until
Yeah.
Sure,
So
sure.
I've unfortunately attended a few funerals over the past 5 years, and these funerals are beautiful. I mean, people come up and they say all these incredible platitudes about the person who's about to go underground. And while these experiences are incredible, I always walk away very upset because the singular thing that I think about is, why didn't you say any of these things when the person was alive? And so I equate time and love very quickly or very closely with each other. So I'm someone I personally have had some near brushes with death. December 22nd, 2008, I was on my way to work, career builder, and I was struck by a car going about 30, 35 miles an hour, hurtled 25, 30 feet in the air, and unconscious for 45 minutes. That was a long time ago, but I remember waking up and there was a few people around me. One of them was walking me down my body. Hey, do you feel the cold air? Um, can you move your eyes? Can you twitch your nose? walked me all the way down my body, and I was praying to God to not be paralyzed. He hadn't asked me about my toes yet, and so I prayed that, hey, if I survive this and you let me walk, I promise to tell the people that I love in my life that I love them, and I will
Mm,
tell them exactly why I love them. So I made that promise at 7:28 a.m. December 22nd, 2008, and that's what I continue to do each and every day. And so I live like tomorrow is not going to. I live like there's no time left, and I've
right.
done that for years. And so, Viv, I think one of the things, especially you and I, we have very different personalities, but we're very similar in a lot of ways too. I say what I mean, and if I'm feeling love, I'm going to tell you that I love you and why. And it's all because of this concept around none of us have enough time left. And so when you think about time from that
I do
perspective,
want to interrupt you over that. One thing that sorry, I do want to interrupt you because I want people to understand this and not like gloss over it, right? We all want to tell each other we like each other, we appreciate each other. It's been talked about quite a bit. You're not the first guy to tell, hey, you should always appreciate, express your kind of verbally, emotionally, how it is. But you have a slightly more nuanced view on this. So you say, like, not only tell people that you love them, but you tell them why,
why?
right? That's a very nuanced view. At least for me,
Yeah,
that was an aha moment. I'll tell you, it was an aha moment, really, right? It's like having the expression of why, right? Can you tell me how'd you come about that? Like that's like a very, which at least for me, it was a very interesting moment in my
yeah,
life. Like, okay, a lot of people say you should do this, but you should also tell people why you did this, right?
yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Course. Well, I think first of all, three of the greatest words in the world is "I love you."
Hmm.
And for a lot of people, even if you say it, it's almost like a throwaway. And and to the point where the words, while they're beautiful, important, you walk away feeling a little bit empty. Do they really love me? Why do they love me? What is it about me that they love so much? And so I decided to take the mystery out of all of that. And in a personal level, it is unbelievable the amount of energy that comes from when one person shares with another person, not only that I really, really love you, but why. That energy that's happening between you and the other person, I wish you could bottle it. And it's unbelievable what types of things you unlock in that human being by saying that. Now, in a work setting, I've always subscribed to the belief of saying I love you at work too, which
Hmm.
is sort of revolutionary. Um,
Hmm.
in fact, I sent a text. I sent a text to my brothers and my sister a couple of weeks ago talking about someone that used to work for me that I love. And my one brother said, "Dude, you love people at work," which made me laugh. But it's unbelievable when if you truly have these feelings for a person that you're working with professionally, how it unlocks their inner potential to do the things that they didn't think they were capable of doing. And I think it's just the world is just a much more beautiful place when people figure out what their not only what their purpose is, but how they look to other people and how they affect other people. And most people don't know how they do that because no one's told them. They have
Hmm.
their own perception of themselves. It's good
Right.
or bad, whatever it might be. But if you said something to them that they did that truly impact your life, think about how many more times they're going to do that.
Right.
Wow, I'm good at that. Guess
Right.
what? I'm going to keep doing that.
Yep. And I like it because it takes the mystery out of the conversation, right? I mean, here's the why behind it. Here's, I love you because you did this, so you did that, and then there's the mystery behind the conversation. I also think it it makes that more visceral. It makes that more real. It's not just a simple three word sentence. Yes, it's a three word line, but
Authentic.
now it's not bullshit. I think I would say like that. That's the thing. Is it is
It's real.
visceral and it's real. So that's an important element in terms of both internal and external. You talked a little bit about like your brother, where you said, "Hey, I love." You and I are very similar. We kind of miss at least verbally we mix up our professional, personal,
Yes.
family, everything. It's kind of like one big kind of like, jumbotron, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of people kind of like have kind of notions of like, hey, look, this is one side of the game, this is the other side of the game. We don't mix the oil and water. Tell me, how do you think about this? How,
Oh my goodness. I and I probably wasn't like this when I was younger, mainly because I was young and insecure. But as I've gotten older, there is no work Cecil or home Cecil. There's just Cecil. I
Yep.
mean, who I am is who I am. What I've realized, and it goes back to being genuine and authentic. You know what? Just one of me is enough for me to keep track. It's hard. If you have different personas that you're trying to keep track of, depending upon the environment that you're at, that is a tough life to live, right? And I personally believe that really, really understanding who you are, asking yourselves the hard question: Who am I? Who do I want to be? What's the delta between the answers to those two questions, and how do I get there? These are they may seem like existential questions, but they're not. They're questions I think every adult needs to ask of themselves, and a journey that they need to go through, because the answers to those questions will have immeasurable results both in their personal and professional life. The more that you are not a mystery to others, the more they'll know how to interact with you. In a work setting, what that really translates to is speed, which you and I have talked about. I think that so many people get caught up in the idea of gosh, what did he mean by that? Am I going to get fired if I do this? Like, I don't know. I'm walking away without any clarity. But guess what? If you remove all of that stuff and be very clear about who you're as a persona, then the things that you say carry way more weight, and they can drive action, both emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. And I think that's an incredible superpower.
Yeah, and going back to time, the concept of time, that we all know we have less time, right? But also, yeah, we have less time. And you obviously had, not everybody's gone through this existential moment. I mean, that obviously changed, or at least influenced, maybe not changed is a harsh word, influenced how you think about time. Um, I think about time in terms of priority also. Like, us spending time together is us prioritizing
Exactly right.
this together, really, right? So, um, and and I love the fact that you and I are obviously very, very similar in many respects. Like, we kind of mesh all these things together. We really do not have different personalities for different contexts, really, right? So otherwise, I do it for a different reason. I just like, it's too complicated. It's simply like, I don't have the brain power. I don't have the brain power to remember what personality what personality I should be where.
I,
Um, and a lot of people get confused about it. But I think this conversation also expresses the fact that it's like a lot of people think like this. A lot of people who have been through the career, think about it that way. Can you speak in terms of, what's your kind of opinion on, like, look, prioritizing things that are important, and like, have you kind of come up with a model or kind of thought process around these things are important to my life? I have finite time. Everybody's got finite time. We know that. We only think about it probably after you're 40. Till you're 40, you don't even think about this shit, and then after 40, you're like, oh shit.
all I think
I'm on
about
the I'm on the yeah, I've crested, bro, and it's just
it.
gonna be on the other side.
Right.
So, if anybody who's below 40, and let me and Cecil tell you, you reach 40 pretty fucking fast. And then you're like, shit, I've crushed it. I'll tell you my personal story. It's like, oh, till 40, I thought, like, fuck, I'm invincible. And
Invincible.
like, I can do it.
Yep.
And then after 40, like, shit, man,
Everything's breaking.
yeah, yeah, I'm on the other side of this crest. Uh, so can you give me your thoughts around how do you prioritize things? Like, is there certain things that you think about, like, okay, this takes priority over that, and
Yeah.
therefore I spend time. Tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. For me, it's fairly, I don't want to say it's not complicated at all. It's fairly simple. I prioritize time with family and friends. That is literally the most simplistic thing until I met Grace 7 years ago. In fact, 7 years ago this weekend, I met my wife, August 3rd, 2018. We had a date. That night I deleted my dating apps. The next morning I decided I want to marry this girl. 364 days later, we got married. And so, so I prioritize anything that supports her is what I prioritize. Now, there's a lot of things that I do that support her. Time with other friends and family members can support her. Time at work can support her. So as long as I can connect whatever it is I'm doing at that moment to loving my wife, supporting her, that's what I do. Now, sometimes there might be competing priorities, and then I have to kind of figure it out. A lot of times, Grace will tell me she's pretty intense, but Viv, it's actually very simple. And I think like you and I in our relationship is a perfect example. We prioritize each other because we also know how much we care about our families. We know how much we care about what we're doing in this world. And time with each other means that we're serving ourselves also. I think this idea of being selfish gets such a bad rap. Like I am incredibly selfish with my time. I don't just give it. And it's also why I think how we come across is when we spend that time, the other person recognizes, wow, what an incredible time. You and I are a lot of fun. And, and, uh, and wow, he could have done a bunch of things, but he spent time with me. And I feel the same way about the people that are spending time with me. Last night I've been having some health issues lately, and I had three dear friends come visit last night. I had a tough day yesterday, and they could have done a bunch of different things. They came to drop over some food,
Mhm.
incredible blueberry pie, and just to say hello and see how I was doing and see how my wife was doing. And that meant the world to me because again, it's time. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different things you can do, but if you're
Yeah.
spending time, that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, I always say that, I'm a huge fan of this. Like, the only resource that is truly finite is time. Like
Exactly.
every other resource we can be replenished in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And if people are investing time with you, that's kind of the only resource that actually matters at the end of the day. Like, that's at least my opinion. Speaking of time, and this has been a great conversation. All right, I wanted to have this conversation with you to kind of to elicit. There's a lot of things you've said. There's a lot of things you've said that if people can kind of really digest this. I've digested a lot of things you've said. I mean, a lot of things you've said is, not, frankly, new to me because we've had many, many hours of conversations
Right.
together, really, right? But and that's what kind of, at least inspired me to do this interview. Is like there's a lot of things you said that I would love for other people to hear, and act on and think about, including things like, when you say I love you, why, be intent, be purposeful with your time. I have learned so much from you in terms of you and just understanding the people who work for you, get their why. It's not just about your why, but their why, really, your
Yeah.
why. And you can lots of, you kind of know about it, or maybe not, but you can get through that. So, this has been a great conversation. And, we would, so I think, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much. I know
Thank you.
it's a tough, like you said, it's a tough time. You've had some health issues, and, health is health. And, obviously everybody at Question Pro is kind of praying for you, and, you're gonna power out of this health issue. um, but also, again, speaking of time, thank you for spending the time with me,
Thank
with
you.
respect to this interview. So that's it. Let me just end the recording. 1 second. That's it.